Lesson 20, knowing what to focus on. When you're taking photos with your phone, you're going to get most of what's in your composition in focus. This is because the lens on your camera is so small and the sensor inside it is so tiny that it results in most of your photo being in focus. With your camera, you can vary the focal length of your lens, and the sensor in your camera is much bigger than the sensor in your phone. So this means that when you use your camera to take photos, not all of your composition will be in focus. It won't all be sharp sometimes. This makes your choice of where to focus in your composition much more important when you're using your camera. You'll usually want your main subject to be in focus. And there's one rule that I stand by, is that if your subject has eyes, it's usually best to focus on the eyes. Whether it's a person, an animal, a statue, whatever it is, if the eyes are not sharp, it's not going to make such a strong picture. You learned about how to manage focus on your camera back in lessons 7 and 8. And where you choose to focus has a lot more to do with the type of photo that you're taking and the style of composition that you're creating. You must train your eye to see and your mind to think critically about composition. What are you seeing within the 4 edges of your frame? And what part of what you're seeing is the most important to the photograph you want to take? The answer to this question provides you the information about what you need to be focusing on. As you become more familiar with using your camera, you'll want to experiment with what's known as a shallow depth of field. The depth of field in a photograph is the amount of the picture that's an acceptably sharp focus. I'll teach you more detail about this in lesson 26. Even if you're not aiming for this look of capturing a shallow depth of field, you still need to be really careful about where you focus in your composition. If the main part of your composition is out of focus, the photo will not be such an interesting picture. And one of the main reasons that you need to concentrate so much and practice on focusing and getting your focus point right is that an out of focus photograph cannot be fixed in post-processing. You can't edit an out of focus photo to be in focus. You can make tweaks in the editing process, you can slightly sharpen images, but you can never ever really fix an out of focus photo. This is why it's so critical to learn to focus and to practice it and become really skilled at focusing. I have my camera's autofocus set to single point most of the time because this allows me to be very precise about what part of my composition my camera will focus on. And cameras that have a touchscreen mode make it really easy to use this for being precise with your point of focus when you're using live view. If you choose to use single point focus, the more practice you get at positioning the point where you want it to be, the quicker and more accurate you'll become. I find when I'm using multi-point autofocus, the camera doesn't always choose the part of my composition that I want to focus on. This is because the camera doesn't know what my subject is, it doesn't know what my intention is, and will usually focus on what's closest to the camera. Facial recognition in cameras has been great to help with this, though, because the camera will detect faces when you have got people or animals in your photographs, and it will focus on them. Lesson 20, practical exercise, knowing what to focus on. This exercise will give you more experience about choosing what part of your composition to focus on. Set your camera to aperture priority and choose the widest aperture. This will be the lowest f-stop number. And zoom your camera to the longest focal length. This is the highest focal length number. Using these settings will help you see the results more clearly. Make a series of photos of a flat or nearly flat surface that has some detail, something like a brick wall or a sign. For the first photos, position yourself so that you're parallel to your subject and take a couple of pictures. And then move so that you can photograph your subject from about a 45-degree angle. Set your focusing point so that it's focusing in about the middle of your composition. And then come in even closer so that you can photograph from about a 15-degree angle or thereabout, but remain the same distance away for the focus point. So don't change your focus again, but just move your camera back and forwards and watch the point in your viewfinder or on your live view where the image is going to be sharp. Try and keep this in about the center of your frame. And don't forget to take notes about what you're doing. These will help you when you're reviewing your images. Now study these photos on your computer. Look at the ones where you are straight onto your subject and at a 40-degree angle and at about a 15-degree angle, and look at how much of each photo is in focus. I think you'll find that the first ones that you took, most of that flat surface is going to be sharp, but the further you moved around, the narrower the angle got, the less will be in focus. What you're seeing in these photos is different examples of the depth of field. The main points from this lesson are: you can't fix an out-of-focus photo with editing. It's usually best to have your main subject in focus. If your subject has eyes, focus on them. Practice this to improve your photography. Each time you take a photo, start by choosing which part of your composition you want to have in sharp focus.